Good.
Good. Because I'm going to join them.
Make sure your volume is
Oh, we've muted the microphone. Amy Jo, how's that?
I can hear now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Apologies. Do we want to start over on the police testing report?
Okay, so for, we have a team that is working on transitioning from the exam cycle, 6 and 7 week exam cycles that we had previously to a bi-weekly schedule. And so we have individuals who have joined our team, Thea Mogan among them, who are working actively in order to transition all of the communication templates and the cycling of candidates, screening of candidates, so that we can move them forward in a more in a quicker manner. So that's what's been going on. So for the entry-level police officer process, we opened the first bi-weekly session this past Friday, and Adelaide will be reporting on the data in terms of how many applicants we've received to date, and we'll be posting that register on November 1st for entry level. For lateral entry, applications are coming in. They have another component other than the frontline national and PSCSC has to take. They also have to participate in an oral board process. So as soon as we can get those individuals scheduled after they've completed frontline national, we'll get those folks on a register. We did this last weekend conduct interviews for lateral entry that were from the last exam cycle. We had 5 individuals who were scheduled, and all 5 passed their oral board with flying colors. We had some candidates that we're excited about. So those names already went over to SPD to start the pre-employment screening process. We are also working on promotional exams for the ranks of police lieutenant and police captain. And we've kind of accelerated the schedule a bit because of our upcoming firefighter test, where we'll have a lot of the time frame that we have always used historically for production of the oral board process. That's going to be taken up by having firefighter oral boards. So development of the promotional exam oral boards are being done this fall. We have a meeting today with our consultants and our exam development team for police captain, and we'll be working on reviewing proposed questions for the written exam for police lieutenant starting next week. So we hope to have that work done before the new year hits, and the firefighter exam that kind of takes up our time in that regard. So that's high level what we have going on with the 4 police ranks. Thea, do you want to talk about what you've been doing?
Sure. I'm working on outreach to contact applicants to make sure that applicants are then, taking the exam, and that we don't lose people who apply and don't test. So we want to make sure that the number of applicants we're getting transition to people who actually take the test and move forward in the process. So trying to eliminate drop-offs.
Yeah. We've also been working on customizing how we reach out to people. So in our application, we ask people how they would like us to reach out to them. And so I think the last time I pulled data, there was about 100 responses. Of those, 10 people wanted us to call them, and about 50 wanted us to email them, and about 20 wanted us to text them. And then the other 10 said, I don't need to reach out. So yeah.
Good to have that data.
That's great.
It's good to have that data. Informs our work. And then the application data is pretty exciting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we've had encouraging news on the application front. So I looked at our data this morning, and we have we're averaging at 20.71 entry-level applications per day. That's the highest metric that we've seen since I've been tracking, which is really cool. And just for reference, this time last year we were at like 6 per day. So yeah, super cool.
Yeah. Well,
That's incredible. That's really incredible. Thank you for that great news, Adelaide, and for your good work. Whew. Wow, thank you.
the village is at it.
Yeah. Well, I know the SPD and the mayor's office will be really aware of this as well. And the city council.
Thank you. 2 quick questions. One is, as far as the outreach to the candidates or the applicants, are we doing that the same type of outreach for fire applicants?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have any update.
And then the other question I have is the spike in applications. If you had to take a guess, I realize we don't have a study or data, but does that correlate to anything that your experience, that something has changed, that all of a sudden now we're getting 20, we're getting 6?
It's kind of incrementally been going up. So like when the contract was settled, we went from 6 to about 16 a day.
Yeah.
And so 20 is just kind of another bump in that regard. We did have a little bit of a downturn during the summer, wasn't it? And a little downturn in applications, but
Yeah, July had a big boom and then August went down a bit. September went right back up. So, yeah.
Sounds
So
like since the contract was ratified, though, that
that's the biggest.
it happened the biggest bump,
Yeah.
and that was in May, I want to say.
Yeah, that was in May.
okay.
Yeah, went up steeply.
Yeah.
As they described. Stayed there for a little bit and dipped a little bit. It sounds like it's ticking up even more. Yeah, that's incredible. Great news.
Perfect. Thank you.
Totally. We know if SPD has a marketing plan, do we think that's made any difference? Or has that gone into effect?
Right now, the marketing plan is being, and for some time, it's been managed by the mayor's office, but I understand that there are arrangements being made to turn that back over to SPD as of January 1. That's what I've heard. So,
Yeah, they did, they spent a lot of money on marketing. They rolled out a big campaign over the summer. They've actually pulled back on some of that, I'm sure for various reasons. And we're working actually pretty closely with SPD's recruitment team. And I know that they're developing some new things with videos of SPD officers. I think over the summer it was some illustrations, like animations. And so now they're developing some more homegrown stuff that I really think is cool. Profiling individual officers, which they've been doing all along in videos on the website. But I think, I don't know very much about marketing, but it looks like they're developing some new, like really authentic materials.
specifically targeted towards
Potential applicants.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So the next item is fire exam update.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Yashiko Grace Monster working with fire exams. Amy Jo is also with us here on Team Red. So you'll have to let me know if I leave anything out. So currently what's going on in fire examinations land is that we're finishing up the fireboat pilot register. So the service calculation draft went out to candidates so that they can take a look at their calculated service credit before, find any errors if there are any before the register comes out. I give folks about a month to double check everything to make sure it's correct. And the register should be published on December 15th. We're currently in active development for the fire lieutenant promotional exam. The proposed bibliography is taking up most of our time right now. The proposed will be published on November 8th. We give about 30 days courtesy notice to the department, anyone, members, any interested parties to comment on the proposed bibliography before we finalize it. And that's not in the rules, but it's been like a tradition that we've developed over time that I think will probably be staying forever. Fireboat engineer, the committee for development for that is usually formed and we start meeting in December. So we're finishing up one fireboat pilot, starting another, or fireboat promotional exam, starting another one on the heels of that. I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about firefighter and answer some of your questions, Commissioner, about what's going on with applications. Applications are open now. So if you're interested or, parents who think their children should get a job, please let them know. The applications are open and they'll be open until November 29th. We also offset the end of the testing window because we recognize that if someone applies on November 29th, it's unlikely that they'll be able to take a test that day, right? The test is not like that quick that you can take it like on demand. So we give about that 10 days so that folks can try and get on schedule to either complete a transfer of the test that they already have, the scores that they already have, or schedule a new test. So they have about 10 days to do that. I wanted to comment about what kind of outreach we're doing with them. So currently, we use some similar template style messages that go out to all applicants. So we have a new template message that goes out that says, your application has been received. Congratulations. That's step one. Here's step two. Go to the National Testing Network, sign up to take a test, create a profile, or transfer a test score that you already have. So we're already prompting them to say, okay, you've gone to step one, but let's move on to that next step. So all applicants who apply are getting that message right out of the gate. I work with Seattle Fire to write a couple of messages that go out under the chief's name. And those include like, we're happy that you're here, you know, keep working out, get ready for your CPAT. And we also have links included to our online applicant workshop, which is a recording that's hosted on YouTube, so that they can get more information and referral to videos, fact sheets, other information designed to help them get through those next steps. I would like to highlight that Amy Jo had this excellent idea, not only to come up with a fact sheet that's published on our website here at PSCSC, but also to put an away message on the email box that receives all the emails from candidates that says, hey, we're going to get to you, but we're experiencing a high volume of contacts. Here's some videos you can go look at. Here's an FAQ you can go look at. So without even waiting to hear back from us, they get an information highlighted to them that they could go throw some on. So I want to say thanks to Amy Jo for that idea. It's really a good one. In fact, I think it was on my email for once. Anyone who emailed me was also getting that message. We don't have a Wikipedia, unfortunately, so that means we are not hand emailing each person to say, how are you and what are your barriers to your next step. It would be lovely if we did. We could probably dedicate more time to individual outreach to those candidates. Right now, we have about 1,800 people who have applied for this cycle. I wanted to talk a little bit more about what that entails. So our office in fire exams contracts with the vendor. So we are the ones who do the vendor relationship management between us and the testing company. We're the ones who, like about a year ago, contracted with a hotel to set up the facilities. We do up to 1,400 oral boards at 21 days, in 21 days over at a hotel. We collect and process all of those applications that you're talking about. So they're getting a touch from either me or Amy Jo. We work with all of those folks to send out reminders, coordinating messages from the chief's office as well. We are in the process of advertising for, and we will be selecting the civilian oral board panelists and the uniform panelists as well. That goes out traditionally to SLP all, should go out this week. Our office trains all the assessors with a custom-made training component specific to this grading criteria that we develop with our subject matters experts who are on the development committee. That's the part I left out. We just started meeting with our firefighter development oral board development group and had an excellent meeting. Chief Branham, Captain Flanagan, and the people who are going to be on our committee. We're the one who sends out the pass and fail notices if folks pass the written exam and are invited onto oral board. I do all the scheduling so that folks, those 1,600, 1,400 people schedule their own exams through NeoGov that we manage. And I have to say, if NeoGov is listening, I wish they would let us do group interview scheduling. I kind of have to use a workaround so that I can invite 100 people to a day of scheduling. So I have to call it a written exam so I can get people involved. I've been trying to get them to change that for about 8 years. I would love if they were listening. We compose the oral board grading criteria with that committee. We publish and put together all of the packets and every single piece of paper that goes out at the oral boards. And I would also say that the oral boards have really been a traditional part of the civil service process. I had the occasion to look up how often we do oral boards. This office conducted oral boards in 2001, 2002, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008. You got to remember that the number of applicants was closer to 300 people at that time. 2011, we took a break because of the Great Recession, started up again in 2013. We did oral boards in the 2015/16 process, and then we switched vendors. And that vendor change resulted in a change in our oral board structure as well. Our previous vendor testing for public safety really wanted 2 oral boards. And so we used to do one that was comprised only of firefighters and then a second oral board that was composed of officers. And when we changed vendors and actually changed to a new fire chief in 2016, there was a desire to change the oral boards again, where we added a civilian panelist who's a trained person, who's an employee of the city of Seattle. And we also went down to 1 oral board instead of 2, because our new vendor was totally comfortable with just using 1. So we did 1 oral board, civil service oral board in the 2018, 2019/20, and that's the system that we're using again in 2024 and 25.
Great, thank you. Now, any questions?
One question, I'm not sure that if this falls under your purview or if this is more fire department's role, but what is our outreach to folks who then make it onto the register? Sometimes that register goes for 2+ years. What type of outreach are we doing for those folks?
Sir, that is a great question. And it actually is more on the fire side because I do the register management. So if someone is hired or declines to continue on in the process, I help take them off the register. But the ongoing communication with candidates who are under consideration to be selected is something that's done by SFDHR. Because after the register is created, I hand it over.
Sure. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is fire and police staffing. Sheila, were you going to take over this project or someone?
Yeah, thank you. We do have Hannah Costin from SFD here. It looks like Mr. McKenzie from SPD told me that he would not be able to attend today, so he provided some information that I can share. But why don't we let SFD share their data?
Sure.
Yeah, hi, I'm Hannah Costin with the Seattle Fire Department. Our separations year to date are 86. Our hires are 69. Our authorized budget pockets are 1,108, and our current staffing level is 985.
985.
Yes.
This custom, the hires, what is your definition of a hire? I'm just trying to understand what that 69 represents.
That's the number of entry-level firefighters who were hired into one of our 2 recruit schools.
Okay. And do you know how many folks made it out of recruit school, the February recruit school? How many folks made it to probation?
Give me a second, I can look that information up.
Thank you.
It looks like 17 recruits graduated from the February class and went out into probation.
Okay, excellent. And do you know how many recruits are currently down at the JTF right now as part of the August class?
I believe the number right now is 15.
15, okay. And I'm sorry, one more time, how many budget pockets? $1,108. Oh, I'm sorry, 1,108. Budget pockets for entry-level fire for the year, is it 60? Is that correct?
We're budgeted to hire 60 annually, though for 2025, we have received 80 pockets.
2024, 60, 25, 80. So right now, if I'm doing the math correctly here, we're looking at if everyone graduates from this current academy, which, with my experience, I would imagine the number will be lower than 15. We're looking best case scenario at 32 folks making it to probation. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have Mr. McKenzie's information here. He reported that SPD has separated, I'll start with actually authorized budget pockets. And we've had a little discussion about, I think actually their ideal staffing or their hopeful staffing would be higher than the number of authorized pockets. But they have 1,094 authorized budget pockets. Their current staffing is 1,012. He notes that that was the Q2 number because he didn't yet have the Q3 data. 70 separations this year, and no information about the nature of those separations, but 49 hires year to date, which is really, I don't have the numbers to compare to last year, but that is a steep increase, I believe, from last year. I actually have some additional data that was provided in another report from SPD that might be interesting to you. They reported this morning that they have 262 entry-level police officers currently in backgrounds. That's
really good.
That's wild. That's a huge number. And 18 lateral or exceptional entry candidates in backgrounds, also big boost for SPD. They have 14 entry-level candidates at the moment who've been approved for hire and pending orientation, and 1 lateral candidate approved for hire and awaiting orientation. This year, they have hired 58 sworn officers. 47 of those are entry-level, rank of entry-level police officer. 2 of those are laterals. So let's see. They have 72 folks on long-term leave at the moment, so that would impact their staffing. But some really nice data reported by SPD. I'm not sure I can answer any questions because I was reading their report, but I can try.
Right. Any questions? Okay. So let's move on to the next item, the Executive Director of Veterans and Departmental Updates. Sheila.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioner Green. I'm going to put up a couple of slides here. I'm going to try. Oh boy, forgive me, I'm clicked away from my sharing tab. Sarah, how do I close this? Oh, thank you. No, I thought I would be sharing my screen right now. All right, you can see that?
Yep.
Great. All right, we do have some department updates. They're really exciting ones. In the 2025 and 26 budget, the mayor proposed some big changes for the Public Safety Civil Service Commission. And I'm going to hand around the part of the budget book that goes up with our department. The big change, which I think most of the people in this room are aware of, is that the Public Safety Exams Unit would be and has effectively transferred to the Civ department. I couldn't talk about it until after the mayor proposed his budget, so I'm really excited to tell you about it now. As of October 1st, we actually had entered an agreement with Seattle Department of Human Resources, which is Been the home of this unit since 2001. To transfer under the organization of the SIP department. So this is something that I've been hoping for and planning for a very long time. So I'm really happy to share this news and information with you all. You can take a closer look at the budget, but it does greatly increase the budget. This unit has a labor budget, of course, but they also have a pretty large operations budget because of all of the things that they shared with you today and that they do all year long. There's space rentals, there's consultant costs, we pay for assessors from other locations to travel from where they live and stay here in Seattle to help us. So this is really exciting. And to that end, we are also expanding the office footprint for our department. We just got approval the other day to add some space down the hall from here. This is really needed and it's definitely necessary. This team, we've talked a little bit about exam security, so they have some specialized needs in their space that we're not able to accommodate in our current physical space. And so I just really want to thank the budget office and the mayor's office for supporting this team getting what they need to do their jobs. And so that's really exciting. I'm going to skip down to the last item on this list. We are hiring a public safety exams manager. We are sad. We will eventually be saying not goodbye permanently, but goodbye in his role to Dave Wright, who is the current 50% manager of this group. He's going to stay in SHR and be doing slightly different work over there. He's not here today, but he's incredible. I know that he'll continue to support these employees in this work, probably till his dying breath. But we just really want to thank Dave and honor his work. But we are hiring a new public safety exams manager. The process, thank you, Commissioner Green, for participating in that process. We're almost done wrapping it up, and I think by the next meeting we'll have some news to report on who is hired and when they will start. Some other things that we've been up to is that on this last Monday, we hosted the Civil Service Commission for their 2024 retreat. They are a fantastic group. We had a really good retreat. Joe was there, Ann Gold was there. We had a lot of fun. Did we have fun? We learned a lot. We had delicious sandwiches. It was fun. It was fun. It was a really good retreat. What do you think, Sarah? Yeah. Sarah did her historical retrospective of the Civil Service Commissions, which I always love. Well, we can have it next spring or summer when we do our next public safety service retreat. And thank you so much to Teresa, who always managed these processes so well. And this was absolutely no exception. Another thing that we were able to do recently was we went on a field trip to the Joint Training Facility. Oh, I should be flipping through my slides. Here are some photos. And this was the idea of Commissioner Tom Applegate. He arranged the whole thing. We are so grateful and it was so much fun. Here are some photos. We are also lucky enough to have this happen on the same day as a press event that SFD was putting on to announce the opening of the firefighter application period. So we got to go down there and see the mayor use a fire hose and climb on a truck, and he was pretty funny. He offered to teach everyone how to use the equipment. And Commissioner Green was there with us. So it was really a good day, and I'm so appreciative of your all's work and participation, but also we met with Deputy Chief Goins and Captain Williams, and they were wonderful, wonderful hosts. So more of that kind of stuff. It's really fun for us, really energizing. Let's see what's on my next slide. All right. I think I'll stop sharing because I think that wraps up my general department update. I have additional budget materials in the packet. They're pretty much what you see every month, though the numbers have increased a little bit due to just non-labor and labor expenses. And I'm happy to answer any questions about those, but that's one of the more routine and No surprises. I was a little surprised to see that salary and wages have not been added for September yet. I'm sure those will show up eventually because we did get paid. And we're well within our spending, our allocated spending for this point of the year.
Great, thank you. Any questions about anything? All right, so the next item on the agenda is the case status report and appeal updates.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Green. All right, we're starting at page 7. I'll just give you the updates on our active appeals. We do have an appeal 24010048, Hill versus SPD. The appellant Burton Hill, we actually conducted a pre-hearing conference yesterday. It was very good. We're trying a new approach, which I don't know whether you're interested in this, but just having the parties submit pre-hearing statements to present a more organized case, and it went very well. We had a 17-minute pre-hearing conference, and it was aces. The parties were very prepared. So that is a disciplinary appeal hearing. It is a discharge. He's appealing a discharge from the Seattle Police Department, and he and his opposing counsel agree that a late April 2025 hearing date would work for them, and I think that would probably work for the commission. We will be reaching out to Commissioner Green and Commissioner Applegate. Commissioner Knoll will look on to other projects by then to look at potential scheduling. And the parties also agreed that it would take about 4 hearing days to hear this case, which is about what we typically see in a disciplinary situation appeal case. So I did not think that, I thought that was quite reasonable. I would thank the parties for being so prepared. It was frankly a pleasure to do that pre-hearing conference. We also have Officer England. This is a suspension case. Yes, that sounds right here. We have not yet conducted the pre-hearing conference. We are waiting, actually. He co-filed with, or he requested also that his union pursue a grievance on this disciplinary action. And so we keep the case in abeyance until we find out whether or not their union will take that grievance and file it on the union's behalf. So that's the status of England. And Willis is a new appeal. This is a second appeal. We had an earlier one from Officer Willis earlier this year. Obviously suspension, and we just received that one a short time ago. And so we are working on scheduling a pre-hearing conference for Officer Willis. We have no appeals for employees for the fire department at this time.
Great. So any questions about any of that?
We have on here the case status report appeal for Drawn, which that's it.
Drawn, yes, we did dismiss Drawn. Sorry, that is down there. I did dismiss Drawn for lack of timeliness and jurisdiction. Recruit firefighter Drawn had not vested his civil service rights. And until you have served the probationary period, we do not have jurisdiction. The commission does not have jurisdiction to hear an appeal on the merits. And he also, his appeal was not timely.
Okay. So moving on, the next item on the agenda is our rulemaking issue. So Director Shealy, do you want to sort of start off with this?
Happy to. I also have a presentation. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'll do an introduction to the rulemaking, and then we will go. Let me look at the agenda. I guess the agenda goes briefing and gets into each rule, and then does the public comment, which is fine with me. I think we only have one person here to give public comments. I have no objection if you wanted to move the public comment. I can do the briefing and then we can do the public comment before I get into the details if you like, or feel free to move that.
Oh, sure. Why don't you consider a brief background and then we can have a public comment?
Yeah, but that sounds good. Right. So we have two rules before us today for consideration, for revision consideration. A notice of rulemaking was posted to the commission's website and published in the Seattle Daily Journal of Commerce on October 10th and 11th, which was at more than 14 days in advance of today. I think it was 15 days in advance. Stakeholder departments, unions, and affinity groups for both departments were contacted on October 4th, 2024, emailed notice of these proposed changes and provided information about how both to provide public comment, but also just how to reach out to me and have any discussions. There are three ways that public comment was accepted for this rulemaking. And we hope this, we're sort of testing this to see if this is going to be our standard going forward. One way was by email to publicsafety@seattle.gov. We had no public comments emailed to us. We also posted an online Microsoft forum on our website, and no online comments were submitted either. And today, public comment is an opportunity we have an opportunity for verbal public comment as well. Rule 9.12, PSCSC Rule 9.12. This actually came up from a suggestion or request from the fire department. We have Deputy Chief Sean Branham here to speak to that. In July, this has actually been something that has come up, as I understand, several times over the years. And I see nodding from the people who've been here longer than I have. And so we were really happy to have this suggestion from Chief Branham and the fire department because we do not like the part of the rule that has been proposed to change. We do not like there being, I'm going to call them the no-fail oral boards for fire promotional oral boards. It is not a standard practice. It is not a best practice to have a 0% floor to pass any part of a promotional or entry-level exam. And so we will hear from Chief Branham, and after public comment, if you'd like to do it in that order, would you like to do it in that order, or would you like me to just go into my presentation?
Why don't we pause here and see and get any public comment on any? That me?
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. So I'm Sean Graham, work for Seattle Fire Department, Deputy Chief currently assigned to the EMS division. I also work with Fire Exams Unit with Yoshiko as the promotional committee chair for promotional exams and now entry level fire. So we started that about 18 months ago. So the relationship has been fantastic. And when this first came about, I've been in the department for 25 years. Like most firefighters, I was pretty clueless to how the exams are run until you take them and then you get word of mouth. However, this no-fail oral board has come up, and we're talking with Yoshiko and other members that I work with. That was unacceptable. It's unacceptable to Chief Scoggins, and it's unacceptable to the members out in the fire department. They want their officers, they want their pilots, their engineers who will promote to be held accountable to a standard that they think it should be, in my opinion, 70% passing. There should be a passing grade. Our oral boards are where you go in front of people and you talk to HR issues, you talk about tactical deployments, you give presentations. It's the personal part of the job, which is about 90% of what we do. And to not have that scored or graded, we shouldn't have that. So I'm working with Fire Exams Unit and Director Shealy to get the no-fail oral board eliminated. When I took this on to go forward and submit the proposition, I read the rule change section and I saw a passing grade. And in my firefighter mind, that's 70%. Because when I took the written test, super easy. I got a 69 point change and didn't move on to the oral board. So I didn't get a 70. right? Everyone knows you get 70, you move on. I didn't understand passing grade was set by Director Shealy's position. It's very easy in the written to understand that the written test, there's 200 questions, 70% of 200, does anyone know what it is? Probably should have come with that, but it's 70%. If I don't get it, I don't move on. When you go to the oral board, there's a lot of points in the oral board. Every oral board situation has multiple pages, scores out of 9, and you come up with, I think one time there's like 436 points that I had accountable to. And I just always thought that 7, I didn't really care. I just wanted the highest number, right? Because you're all in, you're all out. So currently though, we've been promoting the entire list. So to the previous attendance test, the last score was a 15. And that person is a good person, but they're currently leading people out in the community and they got a 15. I don't know what that is. I think it's an F. But so all that to be said, that we came together and said, we need to make a change. So I took that on to make a change. I proposed that this is the letter I sent out. If you have this letter, this is the thing that I sent. So you have it. Director Shealy has it. She can go have it. The same.
Yeah, I got it in the packet last month.
Okay, I'm not sure. So that's where I spoke to the 70%. Because 70% to me is passing. It's passing to my 2 sons in college who just left high school and had to get 70 to pass. And it's passing to every member in the fire department. Our IFSTA test that we take for fire officer 1, fire officer 2, 70%. That's the passing score. That's the standard that we have set in our school systems, higher education, and in the fire department, we take our IFSTA test. I want our members to know when you go to take a test, you have to pass with a 70%. I want our members to know that the officer that they look to has passed with a level of degree of acceptance of satisfactory of 70%. And then when we make a mistake and the city gets sued or someone gets hurt and we are in a lawsuit, at least we can say that that person passed with a 70% that is commonly accepted as at least passing. I understand the concern with setting a standard score of 70%, but to have a passing grade score set after the exam is concerning because I would have a hard time on a witness stand defending someone who got a 15 and we considered that passing because we wanted to make sure that we had enough candidates or we didn't want to fear litigation if it became disparate because the test says 70%. In the end, we have a lieutenant's exam that's taking place. The bibliography we're working on has to be set by November, then December, and they'll be taking a written test in March. The goal of the fire department is that we have the no-fail oral board go away. Whether you choose passing grade or 70%, that's on you. I'll answer any questions you have. But the no-fail oral board has to go away. That's the end goal of the fire chief and myself and the membership. So that's kind of the history. That's why I feel the fire department feels strongly about 70%. It's a standard. We understand passing grade. However, we do have concerns that the passing grade will be determined by Director Shealy's position, and it's not, maybe not be 70%. So then we're having to explain, well, how did that person get this job with a passing grade of 60% or 50%? So, any questions?
Thank you very much.
Do I get to rebuttal after Director Shealy? Because I have the court cases, I have the what may have happened in the previous 3 tests if we had the 70%, right? There's no disparity. Most tests are by white males. But we have results down that number 7 on a test would not have gotten the job. Primarily, people who don't get jobs, if you had 70%, were the last part of the test. There's 50, it's 40, 41, 42, all the way to 50. So it's not, it has shown no disparity to have a 70% for our exams. We use the same promotional exam team since 2000. When did Amy?
Amy started in 2016, but
16.
her company has been advising since 2020? 2002.
Right, so it's been the same promotional, the same exams. We
Consultant. No, I said 2020, I meant
Right.
2000.
So when there's some of the objections that have come up about the testing process, the promotional tests vary in how they're measured in knowledge. I have the bibliographies. We've been using the same consultant since 2002. We have a very good working relationship to build a test that evaluates our members because now we have SOGs guidelines. It's very much the same test with little nuances of maybe a different book that gets added occasionally to bibliographies. So the testing has been the same for quite a long time. There are variations depending on how we evolve as a department. That's tactically or race and social change team wants and needs. And that's trying to get the most relevant information out there to our membership. So, yeah, that, thank you. Any questions?
I don't have questions this time, but I might have questions for you after.
That's fine, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we can do that, yeah.
Okay.
Great.
But I want to leave like this relationship here. I love it. And that's why I'm here, because I believe in what they do. And it's been a fantastic experience. I'm a little hardcore in the 70s, but that's just where I'm going to start. In the end, I believe in the relationship.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Sheila, do you wanna go through this with us?
Yeah, for sure. And thank you, Deputy Chief Branham. We feel the same way. We're so happy that you're the liaison to the fire department for this work. It's really been a pleasure. It is always a pleasure. Okay. Thanks to Sarah Butler for helping mostly putting this together. So I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm going to talk mostly about Rule 9.12. I will talk about 9.23 as well, but this commission has discussed that rule multiple times. All right. So Rule 9.12 is here's some information about the history of passing grade. Prior to 1979, we did have a passing grade score requirement, a minimum cut score requirement of 70% for all promotional exams. In 1979, let's see, no, the system was established in 1979, and in 1997, and do we recall that this is due to an agreement between the fire department and the union?
A committee was formed as part of the committee recommendation.
Okay.
Forward by the fire department.
Thank you. Some work was done and it was eventually negotiated. Negotiation was part of it, that the minimum passing grade requirement would be removed from Section C for fire promotional oral board. So let me be clear, only. And is it okay with you commissioners if I ask some questions of our participants here who have some more factual information? Okay. Rachel, do you know what the problem was? What it seems to me from what I know that the 1997 change was a reaction to something.
There were a number of candidates who came forward who indicated there was some work both in the police and fire departments about around why folks weren't taking, or more people weren't taking promotional exams. And one of the things that the fire folks mentioned was the embarrassment that came along with not passing. You know, people knew that they participated in the exam process, but then they didn't pass the oral boards. And so they really wanted to have, you know, I have to admit, I didn't really understand it at the time because, you know, a low score and having it posted for 2 years seems like it would be, you know, something that would be embarrassing to folks as well. But they felt like it was too impactful and demoralizing and hindered people's wanting to participate in the promotional exam process. And so there were a group of people on the fire side that then formed and worked with the union to negotiate that change on fire side. Police was not interested at all. The police department was not interested in making the change to no fail oral. That's, yeah.
And so for 3 exams in the fire department, it's been the standard since 1990, it's been in the rules since 1997. For these 3 exams, fire lieutenant, fire captain, fire battalion chief, those are the ones that have oral boards. The minimum passing score for the oral board section, which comes after the written section, is 0%, which means that anyone who passes those written exams will be on the register no matter what score they get on the oral board. And most candidates study hard and do well on both components. However, and Chief Branham mentioned this, there are some people who have no sense of how hard they study, but do not do as well on the oral board. And so, you know, would otherwise not be on the list if there were a higher cut score. Currently, 9.12C sets scores that the executive director authorizes a grading scale and minimum passing score, which quote represents an acceptable degree of fitness on such subjects or the class of positions. And so, you know, I don't do this in a vacuum. The cut scores are developed based on recommendations from our consultants, from our subject matter experts who are the incumbents in the rank doing the work, and from our exams administrators. I may officially be the setter of the score, but I am probably the least knowledgeable person among all of those experts who are doing it. But that is not to say that, you know, it is absolutely informed by all of their work. Up here, I've just posted the recommended revision, and that is to remove, and this is a little bit different than what the fire department suggested, and you do have the suggestion here from the fire department, but to remove section B and related words in section C. What the result would be, and these are in your materials as well, in Changes Accepted version is in your materials, is that all exams administered by the Fire and Police Exams Unit we are developing the exams, we are setting the scores and the scoring criteria. We do that based on the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are requisite to perform the work of the rank.
Would you be setting that before or after the exam is taken?
For entry-level exams, we use consultant companies, as you all know, that are administering the same exam to thousands and thousands and thousands of people per year and over a period of years. And so we have there's so much data available for those exams about outcomes and demographic groups and all of those things. So those scores are established in advance. For promotional exams, the scoring scheme, I'm going to really rely on my experts here, is actually established. Can I just ask you to explain?
And I might ask Rachel and Adelaide to come up as well. Absolutely. For things like entry-level fire, entry-level police, those are standardized written type exams that are used across the country, have been validated, are legally defensible. They can just tell you right up front, the pass rate is X, and they use that for whatever they want to use it for, and can say, yes, nationally this works. For promotional oral boards, those are custom developed in a partnership between subject matter experts, exam staff, and a vendor. So there is no body of data that you can go, okay, this one is really hard, this one is really easy. And I believe setting an arbitrary 70% cutoff would really limit the tools that we have in order to say, this test is in alignment with what we think is a passing grade. It just changes from year to year. So there's a difference between the rule that's set forth here, like an A, but the practice has been something like 70%. Now, if we were to have an exam that had 10 people in it and everyone failed, we would have to go, what happened? Is it that this class was completely underprepared? This was so much harder than previous? tests. And so that's where the flexibility sort of comes in, that a hard and fast number is not appropriate for a promotional exam.
We grade on the curve. There's no, no one fails. We grade on the curve.
Oh, you can go in the curve, let me tell you. And we graded on curve for the written exam as well, and people definitely fail. Because if someone scores 100 or someone scores like 210 out of 215 and someone scores 140, they're gonna fail, because that's close. So even with the curve, you can fail.
All right, thank you, Yoshiko. Why don't you just stay up here?
Sure.
All right, so currently, the rule has, a 0% passing score, the oral board, I should say. So everybody who passes the written, as I said earlier, gets on the register no matter how they do on the oral board. But as Chief Brandon mentioned, the oral board evaluates, assesses some really important skills for a firefighter and for all of the other ranks. But currently their scores only primarily impact their ranking on the score or on the register. As we also heard from Chief Branham, and as we know, candidates want to be held to an appropriate standard. And what we have seen on our side is that it is true that some candidates do not prepare at all or very much for the oral board. This is a small number of people, but it does happen. And it is not what anyone wants.
Speak to that as well.
Sure.
As a representative elected by the firefighters and police officers, I know that these tests are pretty unique. The way that they're run, the way that I've been to school, I've gone through all kinds of testing. These are sort of outliers as far as how they work, how the test goes. They're very unique sort of situations. And so I think some advice, which I think is sound advice that I've heard is, hey, if you are considering promoting, let's say you've been in the department 4 years and you feel like you want to work for a while as a firefighter to gain more experience, but maybe you want to promote down the road. Smart people say, hey, why don't you go ahead and take the test? That way you can understand how the test works, what type of material is on there. And then that way, when you're ready to promote, you'll be better able to prepare. It'll guide your studying, all those sorts of things. It's my understanding that in the past, we typically, if the register is 100 folks, there's only 10 folks that are promoted off the register. So because of that, even if you were the last person on the register, people, they weren't even really trying to be promoted. They were just trying to experience the test to be better prepared for next time. And some of those folks, yes, they don't prepare at all because they don't really have any intention of promoting. They're taking the test to gain that experience. We're in this, it sounds like a somewhat unique situation where I think the last 2 registers, we promoted every single candidate on the register. And I know a lot of those folks go, I can't even believe they're promoting me, but again, I suppose I just wanted to get maybe a little bit of context for everyone here that I can't speak to everyone, but I can say that I guess what I want to dispel a rumor that these are folks who are maliciously trying to be promoted and not doing anything. I think that, yes, I'm sure there's 1 or 2 people that go, well, great, I'm just going to take it. I want to be promoted. I'm not going to spend time on this. But I think it's maybe less malicious and more just the idea that folks want to take this test to get experience. And then we're in this unique environment where they're getting a job and they're going, well, I didn't even think I was going to get a job, but I guess you're going to hire me. I got a 15%. I guess I'll take it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just felt like I'd add that to the conversation.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and it is a very small number of people who it is apparent that they didn't prepare at all.
You want?
Oh yeah, you should go.
Well, the only thing I would add is there are very few things that Deputy Chief Branham and I disagree on, but this is one of them. What I would like to see is to bring those 3 fire promotional tests in line with all of our other testing. And that's what this rule change would do. There is no other test in our system that has a preset score set down in paper or has a no fail. And so really, this is just making this rule apply to all of the exams rather than having an exemption for fire lieutenant and captain and battalion chief.
I agree with that.
Fire department would like to lead the way. We're serious.
Well, stop being special.
If safety groups feel strongly, and so does it, fire department sets itself apart. We are, Rachel does a great job with the police department, right? But we don't want to fall in line just to fall in line with everybody else. If we're going to go down a different direction, hold people accountable to a different level of a standard, we want to lead the way.
I guess the way I'd respond to that is we are guarantee you, we will hold all candidates to an appropriate standard based on the knowledge, skills, and abilities they need to have to perform the work of the rank. We just don't want to hold them to an arbitrary standard. That might not be the same as not meet the needs of the work of the rank. And setting cut scores in this way, setting cut scores according to an arbitrary number is not a best practice in exam development and administration. The way that we are describing is a best practice, and I'll explain more. All right, so the setting cut scores, as you've heard Yoshiko and others explain, is complex. These are one-off exams. They're custom built every year or every 2 years for each one. And, I agree with Chief Graham, 70% we all understand it. It makes a lot of sense. We all came up through school and it makes sense to everybody. But it is not based on scientific or psychometric principles. And it does not reflect, as I've written here, the true difficulty, purpose, or fairness of that assessment. They're not a best practice because, and we've heard a little bit of this today, they vary in, all of the exams are going to vary in difficulty, and we may not be able to predict, even though we are the ones developing the exam, we may not be able to predict the difficulty of an exam for the group of candidates. It's not just a good idea, it's the law. The Uniform Guidelines on Employee Selection Procedures are guidelines in the Federal Code of Federal Regulations developed and promulgated by the EEOC. That state that cut scores need to be developed based on the materials required to do the work of the job, the knowledge, skills, and abilities for acceptable job performance. It's not going to produce the best outcomes for our department or for the fire department to base cut scores and relatedly all of the other scores on an arbitrary number. It also increases the likelihood that we'll see adverse impact in our outcomes. And once you set a arbitrary cut score, that's the rule. You can't change it. And we've seen case law, we've seen United States Supreme Court cases make findings against agencies who ended up with what looked like a very discriminatory outcome and toss it out because they thought that was the right thing to do. I don't think it's in the best interest of the Seattle Fire Department, which I know prioritizes diversity of voices, gender, racial, and ethnic identity. I don't think it's in the best interest. I don't think it's in the best interest of the fire department or the city of Seattle. And so my recommendation, which you will weigh, is, and I think I can represent the exams unit, that our recommendation is to strike section 9.12B, and there are a couple of words in C that relate to it. And as Yoshiko mentioned, this would actually bring these three, it's just oral boards for these three promotional exams. This is already the way we do set the scores for the practical exams for the fireboat exams. It's the way we do every component of police promotional exams, both written and oral boards. And I'm not saying like join the police department because everything they do is great, but this is the higher standard. This is the more professional standard for exam development, and it is my recommendation. So I'll be quiet now.
Rachel, do you have a comment?
I was just thinking, what I think I'm hearing is perhaps a little bit of fear around, the standards being, for whatever reason dropped to a a low threshold for candidates to meet. But really, that's not the purpose of this. This is the purpose of having the flexibility is so that we are we are conducting our business in a legally defensible manner. And our motive always is to seek to ensure that the exam that we're administering does accurately test after measuring the degree of difficulty, accurately test that proficiency, the knowledge, skills, and abilities of the candidates, because all exams are different and the degree of difficulty is different. So I don't envision us ever doing anything. I think you're kind of feeling the after effects of the no-fail oral, which, I have to say, the group as a whole, were kind of appalled to learn after the fact that this had been something that was negotiated. So we're kind of trying to ensure that the knowledge, skills, and abilities in this very important area are still measured, but measured in a way that is legally defensible. That makes sense.
Sure, yeah. I would just say, I mean, the legally defensible part, I'm not a lawyer, but I read that case study about Ricci versus Stefano. And I think the test was validated and it got overturned, right? That it wasn't actually.
The test was validated, but the agency reacted to a list of list that they didn't like.
Right, but the case was overturned, it was the fear of the lawsuit that we're concerned about, the fear of the lawsuit. And this was actually wrong. The fire department just, the no-fail oral, yeah, great, we should get rid of that, support the passing grade. My question would be, so when we go to set the lieutenant's passing grade, who's making that, who is working together?
That's actually my question too, is I want a little more information about that piece of it, as well as if we go along with what the commission is recommending. Not an iterative process, but if the fire department is seeing issues or is just frankly not happy with how this is being executed, what does that look like for the fire department to have a conversation with the commission about where the cutoff is being set? And maybe we don't know because it hasn't happened yet, but I bet we have a sense of what that conversation is. The door open to making adjustments and learning from what we're seeing, since this would be new.
Well, I can't speak on behalf of Director Shealy, but I would imagine that we'd be certainly open to it. Part of Chief Branham's role is the liaison between the testing unit and the fire department.
Okay.
So that feedback loop is him.
It would be the open communication.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so when this were to go forward and we put it into practice and if we start seeing some unintended consequences, we could discuss it again and say, what is going on and what's happening. What we have done is we have talked to our consultant and said, what if we were to apply this and look at there had been a passing score on the last 10 years worth of oral boards for these 3 ranks, what would it have done to the length of the register? And I think it was really permissible. It was not like half of them would be cut out or 80% of them would cut out. It would really kind of impact those folks who are just sitting at the very bottom of the list. Maybe the ones who are taking it in practice, or maybe the ones who just decided to show up that day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
will someone speak to the other question, which is how do we envision the director's decision would be made? I know you touched on that. I just want to hear a little bit more about the inputs to setting the score.
mostly those are made in consultation with the exam consultant and the director's staff as a designee. So like I'm the designee, the executive director, Rachel's the designee. And so Rachel and I go in and Adelaide and I go in and say, hey, this is our scores. Is this the acceptable rate? We're all good to go. The consultant says yes. And just keep going.
It is carried out by the public safety exam staff, just my designee.
Has a police chief ever asked to be a part of this? Our chief has. Our chief would like to be a part of this process. more formally engaged. If we're setting a graded score for our department, when Yoshiko or Director Shooting meets with the exam development creator, we would like to be in that room so we have a voice in what that passing grade should be.
One thing I can tell you is that we will never set, and we have never set, a cut score or scoring scheme in response to a department's request to have something less than what is required to do the knowledge, skills, and abilities of the rank.
Sure. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just, this has come up, right? And so, I'm not sure what that last, what does that mean? So you would never do what?
We would never decrease a cut score in response to the department saying, we need tons more lieutenants, please set the cut score lower. So that we can have a long list of lieutenant candidates.
What does the department say that we don't agree with your low cut score? We need to raise that a bit.
Yeah. That's the scenario I'm curious about.
We are, as an independent agency, we're charged with developing and administrating exams that are based on the work necessary to do the rank. We trust and work with the incumbents to tell us what is necessary for the work of the rank. We are actually supposed to be isolated from the appointing authority of the agency because they are not to have a role in our exam development. You're the liaison. And you can speak for the administration, and I know you do. And we work with the incumbents, but those are the experts. And so I would actually caution, I would caution against having the chief have an involved role in setting anything about the score.
I mean, I say the chief, like I'm talking like him, but I'm just saying like the fire department representative. You know?
Yeah.
I don't incumbent. Yoshi.
Those are your
Subject
your
matter.
fire, yeah, your subject matter experts, your lieutenants, your battalion chiefs, your captains, your fireboat engineers.
So me and whoever the promotional committee chair is, and then the group that's working with fire exams, those members would be interacting and studying the cut score.
They set the grading criteria. They don't see the scores of the candidates.
Because that's our job.
Yeah.
So in the end, just so we're all clear, we do work on like, we come together and go like, here's how many, you should get 12 bullet points out of 15 to get a 9, right? And these are what they should be. So we do all that. But in the end, when we leave, it will be up to Director Sheila and Yoshiko to set what the cut score is, and there'll be no involvement with the fire department.
Right. Because that is our professional subject matter expertise and our legal charge.
Right. And I would just counter that. I don't say your cut score for your hiring position because I'm not, it's interesting. It's new to me. Like you are setting the cut score for knowledge, skills, and abilities that you've never done. That's the department's concern.
Understood.
I mean, it's just, that's like, this is just, this is, you can decide what you want, but this is a concern, like, I am now voicing the concerns of different entities in our agency that I would want an answer from, and that I believe the council needs to know that this is where we're having our concern. Like, we're not in the room as the experts to help you set a cut score.
But they essentially do it for every other position.
What's that?
Every other rank.
It's been happening
Correct.
for every other rank and all positions with the police department.
Sure.
Without controversy.
Without controversy?
Oh, I guess I shouldn't speak to that. But it does sound like there is open dialogue for input. Maybe not before the score is set, but after, in terms of informing these folks about unintended consequences or concerns with decisions that are made.
Yeah,
And
I think that's the discussion we are.
And there are guardrails specific to this example set forth in the rules and procedures that say no one outside of the development committee can have access to any of the materials, nor can be on site when tests are administered. That's how separate our operation is.
And it's not done in a vacuum in terms of exam creation. So all of the elements of the tests that are developed are based on a job task analysis where we send out surveys to all the people who are currently in the job in the respective departments, be it police or fire, and they have to, respond to the frequency and criticality of all of their tasks. And then all of the elements that are developed as part of the test go back to that job task analysis. So it's kind of a building block of guardrails that are put up all along to ensure that that which is being measured is what we want to measure, and that it accurately measures the knowledge, skills, and abilities, the level of those who are participants.
If a person passes and their name is on the register and there's an opening, does the chief have to hire that individual?
Yep.
Oh. So that's the safeguard, right? So essentially it all comes down to the chief's decision if he, or in the future possibly she, didn't think someone thought that the passing rate that was set was too low and someone basically snuck through, the chief doesn't have to hire them.
That's correct.
So yeah, they get, he was at 25%, like because I think the top 5 always get an interview.
The rule of 5.
So, yeah, and so at that point, yeah, I mean, in the end, when we get to that level, the chief would have the decision to go, I'm not happy. It'd be interesting if the chief chose not to promote somebody because the scores were too low. I would think we'd be having a discussion, right? Because now you're saying.
Our job.
Okay, well, yeah.
I think that, I'm just wondering if that's the safeguard that the department's leadership is essentially looking for. It's that discretion, the ultimate hiring discretion is the safeguard.
Sure, yeah.
Potentially.
That's been upheld all the way up through the state Supreme Court decision versus city.
Yeah, I know we've talked about that in other contexts over the years. It's come to the forefront.
No, I appreciate the dialogue. I just want to make sure that I get everything out so I can, and it's been super helpful for me. Like, I don't dig into the public safety civil service rules that, until this came up. So, and this is good for our fire department. It's been an awakening for them to realize how this process works, because we are more engaged now than ever in this process. So it's been eye-opening, and that's why I appreciate the relationship. So I might lean in a little bit, but the work that is being done is great. And I know the end result is going to be better tomorrow than it was a minute ago.
Well, if I don't get a chance to say it later, just because I've been peppering you with questions, I am so appreciative with how engaged and thoughtful everyone has been, and just how the clarity of the letter that you wrote, the clarity of the memo that you drafted, getting to kind of see all of this information. It's been really helpful to see, but also just I'm so appreciative of your time and the way that you articulated and presented, and it's incredibly helpful to hear that directly from you. So I just really appreciate that.
Okay, any other comments anybody wants to make?
One question, more of a question than a comment, but one of the things in my mind that I'm a little unclear on is how the cut scores are set, what criteria is used by the vendors and our consultant. I think, Andrew, you might have mentioned that you could potentially speak to the consultant to learn more about how that process works. I think that's correctly.
We haven't invited a consultant to come in and talk about that before, but if that's something you'd like in the future, we definitely could do that.
I think that would be something I'm kind of interested in, is they're the primary person that we're relying on to set a cut score. I'm just kind of curious how that works. And
Well,
what goes into that.
as Chico said, it's consultant and fire or police exam administrator. I have been involved in those discussions and those decisions, although I'm not every single time because I delegate that decision making to the experts. But if that's something you'd like to say, let me show you.
I know it was very enlightening when
Oh, Dr. Swander.
Dr. Swander came and sort of explained the test and the background and all those sorts of things. And so I guess I hear all this, well, the vendor or the consultant sets this cut score, but in my mind, I just have I realize that there's components, but I don't really know exactly how that works.
Yeah. Sure.
That's a good question.
Yes.
We have a lieutenant's test I mentioned coming up, and it'd be great to have this resolved before that starts, so everybody knows it's published, the candidates know what's happening. And so I would, you know, the fire department definitely said, hey, something's better than nothing. So I wouldn't want anybody, you know, please don't get bogged down in waiting for every last detail. If we don't like what happens, I'll be back here next year. Right? But there is an exam coming up, and we have pushed this back so many exams. And I might win the lottery and retire. And I don't know who's gonna be here next. So I would just, please, I would just in the back of your mind know, like, what's our date besides today, like by November?
Well,
November?
people apply in January, so they're really applicants and candidates in January for the lieutenant's exam. So that's when we start giving them information about the exam process. Current information about the exam.
So we're gonna make a change. It would be great to have it done before then, so we could tell everybody like, hey, if there's a change, you should know.
Would it be reasonable to try to have a goal of a vote for this next month, November?
Why not today?
You can vote today. I think I'd prefer to have a little bit more time on the vote. If that still allows time for this standard to be applied to the next application period.
Do you want to have some discussion about it? Do you need?
I'm happy to do it today, but I mean, we could do it next month. That'd be okay. I'm prepared to do it today.
I am too.
There's another rule to talk about too.
I do have another rule to talk about.
And just one thing, if I may, in terms of just the legal discussion, I don't want to get into specific legal advice, but just as a general matter, the one thing that we've looked at over the last year or so is kind of the scope and authority of the commission, PSCSC, related to certain matters. And of course, hearing appeals for disciplinary matters and so on is really important. Testing, development of testing, implementation of testing, doing the testing, that is fundamental to what the commission and the PSCSC does. So I can certainly, as you hear from the department, that's a very important perspective, how these tests or exams are developed, but in terms of developing a test and then having a process for how those tests are graded, that's fundamental to it as a commission, which is not the same for, other employment situations. So we've talked about this before, General, but just make that point.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable voting it, the rest of us would.
Okay. All right, any further discussion, questions? All right, I'm going to propose that we adopt the proposed changes to Rule 9.1.
Let's second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
Do you want to clarify which proposed changes, the fire department or the commission?
The commission proposed. That is to eliminate section B and the first little phrase in section.
So it's on page 31 of the packet, right? So that's the version that would.
Yes. And then the first phrase, that's what the current section. And remember. That'd be my motion.
And I would second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? Okay, so by a vote of 2-1, we have adopted that proposed change.
You voted aye or you voted?
I voted no.
Okay.
Right.
That's all right. Okay.
Okay, moving on to.
You want to take it outside?
Thank you.
Steve in the parking lot.
Thank you so much for clearing up. But we won overall.
We're all winners.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Cheese.
All right, moving on to Rule 9.23. I know we talked about this in our retreat last February. So,
Yes.
Director, excuse me, you want to say anything more about this one?
Yeah, and I'll keep it super brief because as I said, this, and as you just said, this has come up, there's been a lot of discussion amongst commission members and staff on this rule. So this is pulled right from my memo, which I'm sure you all read. This rule is not a change. This is an clearer, hopefully better articulation of the existing process for exam protests and review. This rule, last year, commissioners requested that I begin work on improving this rule to give, actually, yeah, we originally envisioned it as an advisory opinion that would issue, and Commissioner Tom Applegate suggested, as we continued to work on it, that it be incorporated into the rule so that it would be visible and available to, more visible and available than an advisory opinion. Stick it right in there, why not? Especially because that's probably the first place where firefighters, police officers would look when they're trying to find out what the PSCSC rules are. We discussed this previously at open public safety civil service meetings on February 13th and March 21 earlier this year. And the highlights are, it for the first time in the rules describes the role of the exam development committee, their role in exam protest consideration. It provides or describes the standard that the commission has historically applied when considering exam protest reviews. It also changes the term that we previously used, which was appeal to review. Purpose of that is to distinguish these kinds of decisions from disciplinary appeals, which the commission, and there are some other types of appeals that the commission could hear. Hopefully will reduce confusion. And we added a small portion at the end of the rule that recognizes the importance of security and confidentiality of exam content. Wow, that ends my visual presentation anyway. You will find the materials related to this proposed change starting at page 32 in your packet. You've got the track changes version. I will be happy to answer any questions, but I expect I know you all can read, and I expect you remember our earlier conversations about this. Joe, did you want to note something too?
Yeah, I mean, just a couple quick things. One, if you're looking at page 36, which is the version that has the adopted, with all the changes adopted, that's of course easy to do today. Just one quick thing, just that there's a type one under B3 on the second sentence. It says exam materials for protest reviews shall be provided to commissioners and examinees in a manner that aims to ensure their security and confidentiality instead of ensures. And then one thing that for me coming to this kind of fresh last year and trying to track this, one thing that I found, and I'm always thinking about a bigger picture in terms of the readers. It's not just us that are experts at this, and the exam unit is really expert at this, but it's those in the departments who are trying to understand this, and the public in general. Because the way this is set up, and I think there's a simple fix to this actually, if you think it's an issue. The way this is set up, you have the first part is related to what happens before grades are known, before the grades being the exams have been graded. So the first part is talking about the initial protest period. And then it goes right into this 1, 2, 3, which is the commission's role. So there's a role of the development committee related to protests that goes to them from the person who takes the exam. And then there's a subsequent process related to what happens with the commission. And so, but the way this is set up, the 1, 2, 3 is right under that first part. But if you go to C and D, those relate to after the grades have been determined. So I just think it's a little bit unclear the way it's written that way. And so one way would be to move the 1, 2, and 3 down toward the end. But there may be a simpler fix potentially on this, which would just to make to make clear, so after subpart B, so it ends with a development committee will rely on its subject matter expertise in evaluating and advising on protest decisions, period. Potentially what you could do just to make it, again, clear for the reader, let me just caveat this by saying that in talking to Andrew about this, we had hoped to have a further discussion with Rachel and others about this, but I think that it hasn't been an issue. So this is something that I've kind of identified as just as a reader trying to understand this when I was trying to assist with this. So, but if it hasn't been identified as a specific issue for the exam unit otherwise, so maybe I don't want to create an issue that doesn't exist, but I do think potentially this one sentence could make things more clear. So again, after subpart B, the last sentence is development committee will rely on subject matter expertise in evaluating and advising on protest decisions, period. Potentially what you could do is add one sentence to say, an exam protest at this point in the process occurs before any portion of the exam at issue has been graded, such that an examinee making a protest at this point will not know their exam score. That would clarify that kind of A and B are dealt with, that first part before they know their score, and then C and D just impliedly then, because it refers to grades that have been issued, that those are different. And then the reason I think that clarification may be helpful is again because the 1, 2, and 3, there's a role for the development committee, which is separate, which is the initial step, and then there's a role for the commission. So you only get involved if necessary. So it's not you're not involved in that 1, 2, 3 under B, unless there's a protest at that point. But then also you could be involved in C and D if there's a protest at that point. And there's different timing described as well. So you could look under A, it talks about when the review can happen, and C and D talk about 3 business days after the grades have been mailed out or electronically delivered. So
I'm a little confused because 2 and 3 definitely seem to speak to the stage that the commission is at.
well, all 1, 2, and 3 all relate to the commission's.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So 1, 2, and 3 are only they all relate specifically to the commission's role.
Mhm.
But the 1, 2, and 3 can also relate to C and D. That's what I'm saying. Because if a protest is lodged under C or D, that's then the commission.
Mhm.
Yes.
This is the first time I've heard this proposal, so I don't have, I would say, really organized thoughts on it, but I will say that, in A, the protest period happens within 3 days immediately following the administration. It is never scored. So
Is never what?
we're never scored, it's never
Oh,
going to be scored in 3 days. And it never has been. So these reviews, the first set of protests always happen before their scoring done. I don't necessarily think that you need to spell that out. It's just always been that way. And it does seem very clear to me that if the review happens, the protest period happens 3 business days after the exam, you are not protesting your score. You don't get your score. You are only protesting subject matter that's on the test. So I'm not sure that this is needed to add the change here after the sentence of the development committee, or to separate out 1, 2, and 3 from C, D, and E.
And that's fair. The point I was making as well, though, is that 1, 2, and 3 is the specific part that deals with the commission's role. And the commission's role relates more than just A and B. It also relates to C and D. But if that's understood and that you think that's clear, that it would need to change. That's why I'm bringing that up.
Yeah, and again, I'm the designee of the commission, so I'm, as a staff member, I'm still involved in I'm your designee, and so I'm doing steps B1, B2, B3. So it's not the commission separate from me, because I work for you.
Right, but the process doesn't come to the commission.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is we hadn't done any thinking about C and D as part of the work we did earlier this year. I am hesitant. I actually do not want to suggest additional changes that we didn't publish or that we haven't considered for longer than today. We may in the future want to consider additional changes to this rule. But I don't think additional clarification is needed at this time in order for you all to consider the proposed changes. But if we do have confusion in the future, we can always take that up.
Right. One other kind of, not really a typo, but just something, a small thing that is under C and D, it closes by saying in writing within 3 business days after the notice of results have been mailed. And then D says within 3 business days after the notice of results have been mailed or electronically delivered. So I presume that or electronically delivered should also be in C.
Yeah.
They're always electronic.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that would be.
So that's more of just
I have the same concern, especially considering the mail sometimes it takes more than 3 days. With a letter, you're already late.
yeah. So I probably just brought this up so the commission sees this and understands what your specific role is. And if it causes confusion in the future, then you can take it up. But for now, your role does relate to these protests, but it could also relate to C. So it could be under the initial part before the grades are even issued, which has happened. Or it could be under C and D after the grades have been issued. Right?
Okay, any other comments, questions? All right.
I have just 1 second. I just. This may also be too minor to even worry about, and I apologize, I did not notice it sooner. In proposed changes accepted, B1, we changed the title of the position of public safety examiner. An examining who's dissatisfied.
Public safety examiner is the new title.
Right. I just know in other work I've done, we use really generic words in situations like this because the title could continue to evolve.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah.
And then you don't have to fix it later. But I don't have a suggestion.
We could lowercase those.
Yeah,
That's
maybe
fair.
something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good way to do it.
Because there always will be someone who is the examiner.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Absolutely. If you change that all to lowercase, it would work.
Great.
It would elevate title.
Thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah.
Nothing else from me.
Okay. So I'm gonna propose,
I was gonna say, what if you concur, what I could do is state the way the motion could be, and someone could say that's, I concur with that, that's the motion, unless you want to do it based on what we just talked about.
yeah, I was gonna propose that we adopt that with the changes that one, we changed B3 to ensure rather than first, and that in B and B1 that we put public safety examiner in the lowercase.
And then add electronically delivered to C. Or.
Yes, to C. Okay, right. So with those changes, I would that we adopt these recommendations.
I'd second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. So all in favor of that proposed change with my amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. So those are adopted. Again, thank you all very much. The next item on the agenda is the exam schedule. Is it something we need to approve?
This is something, I don't know if you need to approve it, but I just think, take notice of it. I think actually not voting on it might be actually more helpful. Maybe we just take it into the record, because then if emergency things come up, or, whatever unexpected event occurs, we have the flexibility to change a date. We will not change the dates of publication of the register, because those are required. But for instance, if we need to, buddy in Seattle is, all the firefighters are absent for some serious reason, we will have some flexibility within that. So maybe vote to take notice of the schedule.
Okay, so I would move that we take notice of the hire and police exam schedules.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. 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 Okay, so that's it. So any further business that we discussed? We have a next meeting is November 21st. Is that that's a joint meeting, right?
It is a joint meeting, and that is a meeting at which there will be at least 2 agenda items for vote. And they're both regarding me, and Commissioner Green, you and Commissioner Caesar from the PSCSC are conducting performance evaluations. And by that time, you will have shared that material, I expect, with the other commissioners for their review. You all, if you wish, can have an executive session to discuss that. And then there were 2 votes, one related to merit and one not related to merit regarding me. One vote is whether or not I am approved to get the annual wage increase in 2025. And the other is award of merit days. I think it is 0 to 6. Double check, and we'll ask our HR representative, our HR person to come and kind of walk you all through that discussion to the extent that's necessary. It's also a great time to get to know your fellow commissioners on the Civil Service Commission. Stacy will be your last meeting to get together with those other commissioners, so I know they'll be happy to see you. And it's a pretty short, usually a pretty short, simple meeting and nice occasion. We'll buy snacks and beverages and non-alcoholic beverages.
And that's it.
Teresa, would you have us?
And the is like eating and ocean is.
Yeah.
You can bring your own, BYOB. All right, and then the same day, we do have a public safety civil service meeting scheduled after, unless there's no business, and you wanted to cancel it, then we just extend the joint meeting,
Okay, great.
turn it into brunch.
All right, so if there's no other missing, I would move we adjourn. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, we stand adjourned at 11:49. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
I noticed you said that the disciplinary hearings is happening, or might not be happening in April. So the captain's